When someone is fabricating a story, speed is their shield. They rush through details, hoping you won't notice the cracks. By asking them to repeat their words slowly, you force them to step into the spotlight of their own creation. Truth never fears repetition, but lies crumble under the weight of retelling. This question doesn't attack, it simply invites clarity. And clarity is where deception suffocates. The liar now feels cornered, not by confrontation, but by the uncomfortable silence that demands consistency. This question may sound harmless, but it is one of the most powerful tools against dishonesty. Liars depend on momentum. They often speak quickly, throwing details at you so that you don't have the time to stop, think, or notice the gaps. It's almost like a magician's trick. The faster the hands move, the less likely you are to see the deception. When you calmly ask, "Can you tell me that again slowly?" you take back control of the conversation. Suddenly, the liar must re-enter their own story, step into every word they've chosen, and try to keep it all straight. For someone who is telling the truth, this is never a problem. Truth has nothing to hide. It flows naturally. But for a liar, this moment is terrifying because repetition is the enemy of invention. Here's why. Lies are fragile. They are built on imagination, not memory. Memory can be recalled again and again with details that may even expand over time. But lies collapse under repetition because they were never grounded in reality to begin with. Asking for the story again slower forces the liar to face their own inconsistencies. The small cracks they hoped you wouldn't see now become visible under the weight of time and attention. This question also does something subtle. It shifts the balance of power. Instead of you rushing to keep up with their narrative, they must now slow down to meet your pace. Silence enters the room, space opens up, and in that space, dishonesty begins to suffocate. Their anxiety rises, their mind scrambles, and their body often betrays them through nervous fidgeting, over-explaining, or frustration. But beyond exposing lies, this question also serves a higher purpose. It's about honoring yourself. You are saying, I will not be rushed into accepting something that doesn't sit right with me. I value clarity over convenience. And that is a deeply courageous act. Liars thrive in shadows. They hide inside vague language, sweeping generalizations, and carefully chosen phrases that sound convincing but carry no real substance. When someone wants to deceive, they avoid clarity. Instead, they rely on ambiguity, because ambiguity gives them room to bend their story whenever they need to. It's not an accusation, it's an invitation. It doesn't attack their character, but it demands precision. And precision is where lies often fall apart. When you press for meaning, you're pulling back the curtain on the words they've chosen, asking them to step out from the safety of the fog and into the light of definition. For example, a liar might say, I was just busy. That statement sounds acceptable at first, but when you ask, what do you mean by busy, they're forced to explain, was it work, was it an emergency, was it something specific? Suddenly, the excuse must grow roots, and if those roots don't exist, the entire story withers. The beauty of this question is its simplicity. It doesn't raise your voice, it doesn't escalate the conflict, it just digs. And when you dig, you discover whether there's real soil underneath or just sand slipping away. A person speaking truth will usually welcome the chance to clarify because their words come from memory, from lived experience. But someone hiding behind lies will stumble, stall, or become defensive. There's also a deeper layer here. This question protects your integrity. It signals that you are not someone who swallows words at face value. You are someone who honors meaning, who cares about the truth behind the sentence, not just the sentence itself. It's a quiet but firm act of self-respect. And in relationships, whether personal, professional, or intimate, this question prevents manipulation from taking root. When you dare to ask, what do you mean by that? You hold both yourself and the other person accountable. You remind them and yourself that real connection can only be built on clarity, not confusion. This question pierces deeper than most because it doesn't just ask for details, it asks for logic. Liars often spend all their energy building the what. They describe events, invent timelines, or create excuses that sound just believable enough, but rarely do they prepare for the why. And that's where their story begins to unravel. When you calmly ask, why would that happen, you are no longer satisfied with surface-level explanation. You're stepping into cause and effect. You're asking for the reasoning that holds the story together. Truth always has a natural why, because reality is rooted in motivation, context, and lived experience. Lies, on the other hand, are usually hollow. They lack a backbone. For example, someone might say, I couldn't call because my phone just died. On the surface, that sounds fine, but when you ask, why would that happen? The deeper cracks appear. Why didn't they charge it earlier? Why did it matter so much that they couldn't borrow another phone? Why was there no backup plan? Suddenly, what seems simple is exposed as shallow. This question makes liars panic because it forces them into territory they didn't prepare for. They rehearsed the headline, not the reasoning. And reasoning requires truth. If their story lacks alignment with reality, it becomes visible the moment you push for the why. Their answer will feel stretched, awkward, or even contradictory. But beyond exposing dishonesty, this question is also about curiosity and self-respect. You're not just trying to catch someone in a lie, you're standing for clarity. You're signaling, I want to understand, but I will not settle for half-truths. That stance doesn't just protect you, it sets the standard for the relationship. There's also courage here. Asking why is uncomfortable. It invites conflict, it demands transparency, and it pushes past politeness. But courage and clarity always walk hand in hand. By asking why, you are not just challenging a lie, you are creating a space where truth must either step forward or wither away. If lies are fragile, then details are the hammer that shatters them. This question, can you walk me through it step by step, isn't aggressive, but it is relentless. It shines a bright light on the one place liars fear most, the sequence of their own story. Here's the thing about truth. It remembers itself. When we tell a true story, we don't need to script it. We simply recall the moment, one step at a time, because our memory knows the order of events. Even if small details shift, the overall flow is consistent because reality always leaves a trail. But lies don't have trails. They're patched together in fragments. A liar usually focuses only on the beginning and the end, skipping over the middle because that's where inconsistencies hide. When you ask them to walk through the story step by step, you're not just listening to their words, you're watching the gaps widen. Suddenly, they must invent connective tissue on the spot, filling in blanks they never prepared for. That improvisation breeds panic. Their voice might falter, their story may contradict itself, or they may become defensive, saying, why are you asking so many questions? But that defensiveness is in itself revealing. This question also reclaims power for you. Lies work when they rush you, when they keep you too distracted to slow down and analyze. By calmly asking for a step-by-step breakdown, you force the liar to meet you at your pace, not theirs. You take away the momentum that fuels their deception and replace it with deliberate clarity. But beyond exposing dishonesty, there's a deeper truth here. Asking someone to walk through their story is an act of courage and self-respect. It shows you value honesty enough to pause, to slow down, and to demand coherence. You are no longer a passive receiver of information. You are an active guardian of your own boundaries. And perhaps the most important PIs. This question doesn't just protect you from being deceived, it also sets the tone for healthy communication in every relationship. It tells the other person, if you want to be in connection with me, you need to bring truth, detail, and integrity. Nothing less will do. That's not just about catching liars. It's about building a life where lies can't survive. This question is not just about catching someone in a lie, it's about reclaiming your voice. Liars rely on your silence. They depend on your willingness to nod, to avoid conflict, or to pretend you didn't notice. But when you look at someone and calmly ask, "Do you honestly expect me to believe that?" you're breaking that pattern. You're telling them that your trust is valuable, that it can't be bought with empty words. This question makes liars panic because it forces them to face the weight of their own dishonesty. It doesn't give them room to hide behind details or distractions. It confronts the heart of the issue, credibility. It shifts the burden of proof back onto them. Suddenly, the liar must wrestle not only with their story, but with the reality that you see through it. For those telling the truth, this question is not threatening. They might feel surprised or even hurt, but they can stand in their truth without fear. But for someone weaving lies, it's devastating. Why? Because it exposes the performance. Lies are crafted for an audience, and this question makes it clear: I'm not your audience. I'm not here to applaud your story. I'm here for the truth. This moment is powerful because it's about courage and boundaries. It's about saying, my trust, my time, and my heart are not playgrounds for your deception. It requires bravery to speak it because confrontation always carries risk. Risk of anger, rejection, or conflict. But courage isn't the absence of fear. It's choosing truth even when fear is present. And here's the deeper beauty of this question. It's not just about the liar. It's about you. Every time you refuse to swallow a falsehood, you strengthen your self-worth. Every time you confront deception, you reinforce the belief that you are worthy of honesty. You are declaring to them and to yourself that your relationships must be built on integrity, not illusion. So yes, this question may make liars panic instantly, but more importantly, it empowers you to live in alignment with your values. And that, at the end of the day, is where real freedom lives. This question is disarming. It's not sharp, it's not aggressive, and that's exactly why it unsettles liars so much. Liars are prepared to defend themselves against attack, but they are rarely prepared to explain themselves in a way that makes sense. By saying, "Can you help me understand?" you are asking them to bridge the gap between their story and your common sense. And often, that's a bridge they cannot build. Truth is naturally understandable. Even when it's messy or complicated, a real story has depth that can be explained. But lies are hollow shells. They collapse the moment you ask for insight. This question pushes the liar into territory they fear most, your curiosity. Because curiosity demands depth, and depth exposes deception. What makes this question powerful is its tone. It doesn't come with accusation, it comes with vulnerability. You're saying, "I'm trying to understand you." But beneath that vulnerability is strength, because what you really doing is holding their words accountable. If their story is true, understanding will come. If their story is false, confusion and contradiction will follow. And here's the deeper truth. This question doesn't just reveal lies, it affirms your own worth. You're saying, "I deserve clarity, I deserve to understand, I will not live in the fog of half-truths." That kind of stance builds trust with the honest and exposes the dishonest. Either way, it brings you closer to reality. Liars panic when they hear this question because it exposes the gap between what they said and what they can prove. But for you, it becomes a line in the sand, a way of saying, "I value truth enough to demand that it makes sense." And in a world where lies are often easy to speak and hard to catch, that is one of the most courageous things you can do. Specificity is the greatest enemy of dishonesty. When you ask a liar, "Where were you exactly?" you are stripping away the safety of vague answers. Liars often lean on generalities. "I was out, I was busy, I had something to do." Those statements are designed to satisfy curiosity without offering real accountability. But the moment you request specifics, the comfort of vagueness disappears. Truth always has coordinates. A truthful person can recall places, faces, times, and sequences without much effort. Their memory provides anchors. Because lived experiences are real, they leave marks on our minds. But for someone fabricating a story, these anchors don't exist. When pressed for exact details, they often stumble, change their version, or grow irritated that you're digging too much. That irritation itself is often a signal that deception is at play. This question makes liars panic because it forces them to step outside of their script. They may have rehearsed the what and even a partial why, but they rarely prepare for the precision of where. A liar knows that the more details they give, the greater the risk of exposure. Yet refusing to give details also exposes them. It's a no-win moment, and that tension is where dishonesty begins to collapse. But asking, where were you exactly, isn't just about catching lies. It's about protecting your boundaries. It's about saying, if you expect my trust, I deserve your clarity. It teaches others that your relationships are not playgrounds for half-truths and evasions. And here's the deeper part. This question also reminds you of your own strength. You're not asking out of suspicion alone. You're asking because you value truth enough to demand it. You are willing to lean into the discomfort of confrontation because you know clarity is better than comfort built on lies. That takes courage, and courage is the foundation of real connection. This is the question that makes liars tremble. Most lies are constructed to live in isolation. They depend on the hope that no one will question them, and certainly that no one else will be asked to verify them. When you calmly ask, can anyone else confirm that? You move the story